Hey, friend, welcome back to another episode. So, we are just diving in to a powerful conversation as part of Women's Health Wellness Month. We're talking about something that many of us experience, but we don't always have the words for. And that is the mental load of women. From juggling responsibilities to setting boundaries and letting go of the guilt. We'll discuss how to create space for joy and balance in your daily lives. And to help us unpack all of this topic, I am going to be joined by special guest Chelsea Clifton. Now, before I bring on Chelsea, I just want to introduce you to her. Chelsea is a licensed marriage and family therapist who is passionate about creating a judgment free space where people can truly be seen and understood. She helps women to navigate the weight of emotional and mental responsibilities while equipping them with tools to thrive. She believes in meeting people where they are, having real conversations, and providing a safe space to work through the feels so that they can move forward with confidence. I know today's conversation is going to be a powerful one, so let's dive in. Hey everyone, I'm Leslie Martinez, and you're listening to your Joyful Order podcast. Each week, I will bring you joyful stories that will motivate and inspire you, and at the same time, bring order to your everyday life. Let's just say the show will be a mixture of preaching and teaching with a kick of motivation from your girl here. Welcome to your Joyful Order podcast. So, I am back here with Chelsea Clifton. So, Chelsea, thank you for your time and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
So, Chelsea, this month we were talking all about women's wellness, and I wanted to have this topic of conversation, and that is just the mental load that women carry. We carry so much mentally and emotionally, and it feels overwhelming and stressful very often for us. And as we're on this topic of just women's wellness, like as a whole, the mental load that we carry is a huge topic that I think I wanted to unpack. And what better way to unpack it than with a therapist? So, Chelsea, for those that might not know or be familiar with the term of like the mental load, can you just describe how it uniquely affects women and what that actually means?
Yeah, so the mental load is essentially this kind of like invisible way to blanket, like, and not in a bad way, but it's essentially right. Like, we have so, like, our to do list, like, and that's kind of when I work with clients, it's like the never ending to do list. And even if you kind of think you get completed, it almost feels like it starts all the way back in the beginning. So it's kind of this like vicious cycle of like, I get one thing done, three things get added. I get two things done, five things get added. And so you just feel like, I'm going, 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 and I have, no capacity to kind of stop. And for moms, especially, right? It's not just like our own mental things that we're trying to work out. We're trying to now manage one or more other people that literally are depending on us. And, even with, small kids, with, middle school kids or with teenagers, like you are still always like thinking ahead, right? And I think that's the other thing too that moms are a common theme is like, I know what my end goal is like, and I'm working my way backwards, like of what are the things I need to do to like make this thing happen? Where the majority of our family members are just starting here and going forward. And you're like, well, I have to think 5, 10 steps ahead to make sure this runs as smoothly as possible. But what happens is, well, if our capacity is here, if I keep thinking, now I'm here, and one kid has a tantrum, well, now my bandwidth is so little that I just explode. And now I'm stuck in this another cycle of shame and guilt of, dang it, like I lost it on my kid again. Why did I do? So now I'm carrying this guilt load plus the task load plus the future load. Like, and so and that's where it just starts weighing us down. And that's where a lot of times we start to feel disconnected from our partners. We start to feel disconnected from other people in our lives because our mind is constantly going, 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 which I think we all have great intentions, but it's never ending. And that's exhausting. I think that's why like when mom's like, I'm tired, it's like, I'm not just like physically tired. I am mentally tired. I am emotionally tired. Like, it's like, I don't feel like anybody could prepare any mom for like like people like, yeah, moms are tired. I was like, no, no, no. Like true exhaustion is I would is how I would describe it.
Yes, I love the term that I wrote it down, that your mental load is like a weighted blanket.
Mhm.
That's such a good way to look at it, and the emotional, like, tiredness of it too, right? Like, it weighs you down, and it kind of freezes you from doing stuff. Like, it causes this procrastination, right? Because you're carrying so much, and there's just so much going on in our brains that we just don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So we procrastinate because it's like, I have so much, like, I just don't even know what to do. You get so overwhelmed. So why do you think women do carry this invisible weight often? And oftentimes they don't even realize it. Like, we don't realize that we are carrying all of this, and there could be a woman that's listening right now that they're just on an emotional roller coaster, not realizing that they have this weighted blanket on them holding them. So why do you think that is?
I definitely like a multi-layered kinda answer, but I think there is this, cultural piece that I always like to address of, like, mom is the one that takes care of the kids, mom is the one that runs the household. Even if and I always like to say this, like, even if your partner is incredibly active and on it and checks the calendar and things like that, it's still this, like, societal and cultural pressure of, like, mom runs the household. Like, mom makes sure that the doctor's appointments are set. Mom knows that, that the assignment is due 3 weeks from now. So what do we have to do now? And it's once again, not to say that partners are inactive and they're not on it. I think right. And then also you have to, another layer of like social media. You have this layer of like, wow, like that mom can somehow do it all. So if they can do it all, then I should be able to do it all. And I don't see them asking their partner for help. And I always say, that's the 1% that they're showing. That's not the actual story. And so I think that also, kind of plays into this narrative that we have of like, I have to do it all. And if I ask for help, I'm failing. And here's where that shame comes in is like, I'm not failing at a task, like I am a failure because as a mom, we somehow have this really intense expectation of I should be able to do everything. And I think there's also, right, the generational, right, of, this pressure of like, I have, and not in a mean and intentional way, but it's like, who's getting the text? Like me or my husband, I'm the one getting the text about the family party and what I need to bring. And I'm like, no problem, got it. Like, and so it's we just handle the things. And so I think all those different pieces and different layers like kind of add to this like, well, now I'm gonna stay quiet because I've said yes too much, and I feel bad asking for help because I have never asked for help before, so people are gonna be like, "Well, what's going on with you?" And I think too and that's where even our self-worth and our identity comes in as a mom of, like, good moms make sure that things happen, and so put that expectation on ourself.
And, God, you said so many good things right there, Chelsea, because cultural and society, like, all of that has a huge impact on, yes, what women do, right? It's like, okay, if you look back, like, generational, right? My mom was of the baby boomers phase. So, my mom, during that time when she was brought up, she had a stay-at-home mom. My mom was one of 11 children. Her father went out and worked, and her mom stayed home and took care of, like, all the children. I mean, you have no choice when you have 11 children, right? Um, but they also grew up in poverty because there was so many children and because of the time, this is like we're talking like the 40s and 50s here. So the generation started to evolve a little bit to, that was I forget what generation is before my mom, but I think her parents are I don't know. Anyways, before the baby boomers, I don't wanna try to think about it right now, but then come the baby boomers, and then when my mom and dad were raising us, I'm Gen X, right? I grew up like a latchkey kid because both of my parents worked, but there was still that expectation that my mom was she cooked, she cleaned, she took care of all of the things, right? But she had to work. Also, because at that time, like, there was no you couldn't just have the one parent income,
Mhm.
right? You had to have 2 parent incomes. Both of my parents worked, but there was that expectation that my mom, she still had to cook, she still had to clean. She still was, like, our emotional provider. She was the one helping with homework, like, all of that. But my mom worked an 8 to 5 still. Like, So that pressure that was there and then coming down now like to Gen X, right? Both of us work. But I think this generation from like the Gen X on, I think we see a lot more of both parents carrying the load a little bit. I think it's gotten a lot better from, like, the baby boomers and, like, before that, right? So I'll speak for myself, like, my husband is great at carrying a lot of the responsibilities. He cooks, he cleans, he helps the kids with their homework, he takes them to practice, like, he is a very involved, amazing father, has been, right? That's not the sense for everybody because there's still that cultural and societal like stigma that, well, no, and I know some in my generation that there are men that just don't cook, clean, or get involved, right? So I think we're starting to slowly see that evolution change a little bit. But you brought up a good thing about like social media, right? Social media just brings it up and you get yourself in that comparison trap of, well, it looks like she's doing it all. Like, oh, she's an influencer and she has this amazing job and she has all these kids and she gets to do all these great things and, all this stuff. And that influencer lifestyle, it's not all fun and games, right? And it- seeing that, like, that I want to just sit there for a little bit because the whole social media doing it all, like, what are some practical ways that we can share with women? Because we know that on the other side of that, they're not showing everything of what truly goes on, right? I mean, they're highlighting certain things, but the social media realm just brings a totally different impact to women. And I wanna, like, sit with that for a little bit because what have you seen the impact that social media has had with the mental load, not just on women, but also children?
It's funny. It's actually this has, like, been, like, a theme for a while that, like, when I work with parents, and so it's kinda like social media, right? Like, so his mom gets up at, 2 hours, like, before her kids, and then she is dressed and ready to go, and the lunches are packed the night before, and she, like, creates these, like, very smooth mornings and things like that, and that's where clients are like, "I feel so bad because I wanna do that, but then I'm so tired, like, there's just no way that I can do that," and so this has kind of been the biggest theme. It's actually a quote from a fantasy book, and I remember I pulled it out one day, and it has, like, clicked with so many people, and I'm like, "Whatever, just gonna run with it. Thank you, Fourth Wing." Essentially, like, the long story short is the main character, like, can't get up the ramp like a normal person due to, like, her size and stuff, and so the other main character says, "The right way isn't the only way." And that's where I really emphasize, like, just because this mom gets up at 4 AM does not mean that's right for you and does not mean you can't have a smooth morning. Your morning is just gonna look different, and so kinda taking that pressure off of, like, if 4 AM does not work for you, don't fight it, right? Go like, what does work for you? If packing lunches the night before is too much for you because 'cause you're exhausted in the night, great, pack them in the morning, or let's bring the kids in and let's, like, have them, and it's funny too because like, even I've, like, fallen victim of it, of, like, like, parents like, "I make my kids do chores." I was like, "I am so exhausted by the end of the day, I don't care anymore." Like, I will just clean the toys. I will just clean them because I need it done and I'm over it. Like, there's a pretty big influencer I follow, Audrey Roloff, and, she has 4 kids, and she went on this trip, and she made it clear, "We are showing you guys the really good moments. Please do not take we have 4 small kids. Like, there have been meltdowns, there have been tantrums, there have been timeouts, like, there have been all these things, but we're not gonna put that on social media. Like, that is a private family matter that, like, we're gonna handle." So, like, you see our kids sitting at a table smiling, you didn't know that 10 seconds later, somebody starts screaming, and then we have to remove that kid, like, and take him outside, and so I think that plays, like, we also put this, like, their kids have it together, and it's like, "No, no, they're portraying what they want you to see." Like, that is, the goal, right? And so and I totally feel that, right? Like, I wanna always respect my kids' privacy, like, I'm never gonna put their tantrums on social media, because you put it on the internet, like, it's there forever. So, it's being cautious of that, and that's where I tell parents that, like, you have to be cautious of, like, what you're putting out there forever, and so that's why a lot of influencers aren't putting that they maybe they portray, "I get up at 4 in the morning." Maybe they really don't. Maybe they get up 5 minutes before they're supposed to leave. Like, we don't really know.
Which happens, I'm certain, right? When, like, or you're just so tired and you don't set the alarm, or you turned over and hit snooze, and then you're like, "Oh, oh, darn," or turned it off. Yes, and I love how you said the right way isn't the only way. One of the things that I often tell my clients is, like, I thrive off of my morning routine, right? But I have a soon to be 20-year-old and 17-year-old. So my morning routine, I'm not having to, like, feed my children, get them up, like, all of that stuff. Although I no, let me backtrack. My 17-year-old, I have to go in his room, like, 4 or 5 times to get him up, but I'm not having to get him dressed or bathe or prepare his lunch or prepare his, meals, like, he's self-sufficient for the most part. But there is a season, and that's why I love, like, the right way isn't the only way. Like, if you're in a season where you have young kids right now, your morning routine is gonna be, like, screaming to get your kids ready, packing their backpacks, like, stressing out, "Is your homework done?" Like, "Let's get your lunch," like, and then, like, God forbid that you do a fancy bento box type of lunch, right? Because you're trying to, like, hurry up and get out, like, screw the cookie cutter sandwiches, like, really just, like, slap some PB&J on a piece of bread, throw it in a baggie and a lunch bag, and, like, you're off kinda thing, right? So we see ourselves comparing ourselves to, like, "Oh, well, that mom, she does a cute little bento box and cute little heart-shaped sandwiches and stars," and like, that requires, 1, a lot of planning. Can you do that with proper planning? Absolutely, you can. But it is like another emotional load to carry. Like, "Okay, what cute thing can I do for my kid?" Now, if you're a stay-at-home mom, maybe you work from home and you have a little bit of time and effort to do that, do it. Will your kids love it? Yeah. Will they remember it? No. Right? Like,
Yeah.
no. They're absolutely not gonna remember. I used to do those cute little bento box I only did them, like, once a week for my kids, because I didn't wanna stress. Like, I would do a cute one, I put the little note in their lunch pack, like, all of that, and I would bring it up with my kids sometimes, and I'd be like, "Do you guys remember when I would do this for you and stuff?" And they're like, "You did? You did?" Like, they don't remember that, but they do
Yeah.
remember that in the mornings, like, we got together as a family and we prayed, and we did, like, a break, like a team break. We get in a circle, we put our hands in, and we're like, "Okay, ready, 1, 2, 3, go, Jesus." They remember that,
Yeah.
but they do not remember the fact that I stressed about what cute little bento box and the note, like, let alone even what I wrote on the note. So, that mental load, I can tell you now that I'm on the other side of that, it was a complete waste of stress and overwhelm, right? There are things that your kids are gonna remember, and there are things that they absolutely are not gonna remember. They're gonna know that me and my husband were at every single one of their games, activities, awards, speeches, school events, like, they're gonna remember all of that. They're not gonna remember what gifts I gave them when they won perfect attendance. They're not gonna remember how much money or the words that I wrote in a card when I told them, "Hey, I'm proud of you for doing this, 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 or that." They're gonna remember verbally what I've told them, but, like, the things, they're not gonna remember that. So, now that I'm on the other side of parenting, where now I have, like, adult children in college, moving into college, like, all of that, I look back and I think I stressed about the stupidest things when they were little, like, literally the stupidest things. I the boxes, the lunch, just the little things, that damn elf on a shelf, like, literally,
Yes.
the mental
Yes.
load during the holidays, okay? Now, I know that my kids will remember certain magical things and traditions that, like, they will carry on, and they do love that about the holidays, but it's more of, like, the feeling. And that's where I think we miss it a lot of times, that we are so focused on the things rather than the emotional connection that you're making with your kids during that time. Okay, talking on all of this, there's so much that we can unpack here, but I wanna kind of get into a little bit about I've been big on this, like, series on boundaries, and I think in every season of life, every season of, like, emotions, relationships, your spirituality, like, there's so many different types of boundaries that you can create within each of those different areas of our life, right? So, eh, boundaries can be tough also. They can be very challenging, especially as a parent with adult children, as a parent with adolescents, as a parent with like, all of this. We were chatting before we even hit record, like, just the boundary subject alone, like, how do you create boundaries with your kids? You can't tell them to go away, right? With your spouse, you're like, "Just leave me alone." I'm just hard shut door in the face kinda thing. But moving into creating these boundaries to help us, like, unpack this emotional load because we carry so much. How can we create boundaries in our relationships? And I just wanna talk about spouse and children at this time. How can we set healthy boundaries without, like, feeling of neglect, without feeling that we're being selfish or guilty, without being, harsh to our significant other or our children? W let's start there. I know you have lots to share about this, Chelsea.
I'm like, "Buckle up." Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you actually said something, and I was like, I tell this to almost all my clients of, "Hear me all the way out, and I'll go into it more." Putting yourself first is the most selfless thing you can do for your family. And I'll bring in spirituality just for, like, a hot second. I'm like, Jesus totally talked about boundaries. Totally said, "I need to go spend time with the Father. I need to rest while there's a storm happening. I need to take care of myself first because if I'm on empty, I can't give you anything."
Mhm.
And I'm like everyone was like, "That is," and dads too, like, they're like, "That is so counterintuitive." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Absolutely, let's talk about it." Like, because and so that's where and it's and I think the selfish side, right, is like when we take it to an extreme of like, "Oh, sorry, like, like, I can't, I'm checked out, I can't," right? So it's like there's a balance. And so essentially, like, going straight into boundaries. So I tell people, like, boundaries is the line you create for yourself of how you are going to respond to something. It has nothing to do with the other person. It is not their responsibility to respect your boundary. It's not their responsibility to follow your boundary. Boundaries are for you and you alone. It is me saying, "This is my line and I will not cross it." So when people are like, like kids, "My kids didn't respect my boundary." Great. You were the one that broke it. Your kids did not break your boundary. You broke your own boundary because your kids don't know where your line's at. Even if you tell them, it's your responsibility to hold your boundary. And I tell this, a lot of there's a difference between setting a boundary and holding your boundary. Because in setting a boundary, we can do that all day long. All day long, we can set a boundary. It's holding it when push comes to shove, when tantrums happen, when, we're getting into it with our spouse, like holding our boundary, right? Which is the difference. So, like, even, okay, so like, let's do like, we'll use spouses first. Like, I think that's a good one, right? Of when I can feel like if, my husband says something and like I'm feeling it or vice versa, right? It's being able to identify what is going on with me first and how do I take care of myself first before I go in and try and join that conversation. Here's where the healthy part comes in of like, "Hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need a second first." Because if I just stay quiet and go walk into another room, well, now he has no idea what's going on. And that's not fair to him to not give him a heads up of I'm coming to my line. I wanna pull back because I wanna have a conversation with you. I don't wanna have an argument with you. So, like, I gotta take care of myself first, and then I can come back because I'll have a bigger bandwidth to be able to sit in this. And so, same with kids, right? Of, the tantrum is happening. It's like, "Hold on. What is going on with me first? You can keep throwing the tantrum while I figure out what's going on with me, because once I can figure out what's going on with me and I can take care of my own needs, because essentially when our kids are having a tantrum, it's causing us internal distress. And so what happens is your brain says, "Get rid of this feeling. That thing over there is causing this. So get that thing to stop. You will feel better." The hard part is your kid is totally in fight or flight. They can't hear anything you're saying. They're, literally they can't tell the difference between your bear versus your mom or dad. And so it's like if I can take a step back, take care of myself, make sure I'm at a place that I can handle this. And I even work with like, single parents, right? Of like like, and that's the hard part is, like, you can't tap in sometimes, like or even, like, my husband, he works at 5 in the morning, so, like, mornings are by myself, so it's like, "Okay, I have to be the one that does this," and so that's where I kinda saying, "Mom is feeling overwhelmed. Mom feels frustrated. Mom feels a little scared, like, because I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna do some coping skills. You wanna do them with me? Great. You don't wanna do them with me? Great. Like, I'm gonna do them for myself, and this is how you're modeling to your kids what a healthy boundary looks like. The boundary is where the space you're gonna operate within and knowing your line that you're not gonna cross.
Oh, that's so good, Chelsea. As you're saying that, I remember, like, I would tell my kids, "Mommy needs a timeout right now." And I literally would go lock myself in the bathroom and just sit on the toilet and cry my eyes out because I was so overwhelmed. I was so frustrated. I was to the point where, like, I wanted to hurt my child. And I'm like, I need to walk away. I so need to walk away. They were few, but I just remember I got to that point where I'm like, and it was because my child had crossed a boundary. But again, it was how am I gonna react to this? I grew up in an abusive home. I'm never gonna put a hand on my child. But at that minute, I was like, I need to put myself in a timeout because I do not know what I'm gonna do right now because I was so, like, angry or frustrated, right? So I would lock myself in the bathroom and I would sit there and I would just be like sometimes I would just, like, scream eternally, sometimes I would scream out loud like, "Ugh," like, cry, pray, literally get on my knees, just curl up in the corner and like, "Okay, God, I need you to calm my heart, calm my mind, calm my spirit right now." And I remember there was some ti I don't remember exactly what it was, but my little one, my youngest, he's the one that drove me absolutely nuts because he's very much like me. We have the same personality, so we, like, bumped heads often, right? And I cannot again, I cannot tell you what he did that caused me all I remember is, I "Mommy needs time out right now." I locked myself in the bathroom, and he knew that he had did something, like, naughty. I was in there crying and crying and crying. And as I'm sitting in the bathroom crying, he slips a note under the door, and it says, "Mom, I'm sorry. I love you." And, like, I lost it even more, right? Now, had I reacted differently from that, I don't think it woulda given him the time to realize that what he had did was not right, that he had crossed a boundary during that time. And there's lots of failed parts in that also that wasn't always like that, that I would, like, get frustrated and maybe lose it on them as far as just, like, yelling or screaming, and then after I'd have to apologize, "Mommy, sorry, I really shouldn't have handled that. I shouldn't have said this." So, lots of learning in that, but a lot of times, like, we lash out because we feel like we have to handle it right then and there, right? And that's one thing that I know I learned with myself. I have to walk away. Like, I have to say, "I need a timeout," or, "We need a break." I can't do this right now because I am going to say or do something that I'm going to regret, and I'm gonna have to apologize for it later. Like, I'd much rather let's just calm down, let's evaluate where we're at, what we've done, what we've said, and then just have a civil conversation. But that's not always the case in relationships, right? Sometimes the other person just like, no, I want to go at it now. I want to figure it out. Your kids are testing your patience and they just keep crossing those boundaries. So, how can we communicate like our needs, especially when it comes to that boundary, without feeling guilty about it also? Because I think that's a big mental load that us moms carry is just the guilt. But how can we communicate that without experiencing the guilt?
So here's where I challenge you is how can we acknowledge the guilt and hold a space for the guilt and then allow it to pass over us? Because, right, feelings are gonna happen no matter what, and that's where, like, day 1, when people walk in this office, I say, "We are not fixing anything, we are learning how to make things more manageable." When your feelings, when your trauma, when your inner child comes out, I'm not here to get rid of it. I'm here to help you learn how to acknowledge it, give it its space that it needs,
Mhm.
validate it because this is what I tell people. Your feelings are real, your feelings are valid, and most of the time, your feelings are not facts. That's the key part because what happens is we are physically feeling the guilt, and so it's like, well, it must be true. Feelings are not facts. That's
Mm.
just what we're experiencing in that moment with all these other layers happening, right? I saw my friend's kid freak out and they were able to like get down to their level and talk to them calmly. And I'm like, I also can do that in public because everyone's watching me. Like behind closed doors, it may not be the same scenario. You know, so it's being able to like, I'm feeling guilty. Okay, what do I need right now? Do I need to say a quick prayer? Do I just need to say like, it's okay to feel guilty? Just
Mhm.
because I feel guilty doesn't mean I'm a bad mom. I'm a really good mom who experiences guilt. And once I can take care of that, that helps me to then get out of I call it the emotional loop, right? Because when we're in a heightened state and our kids are in a heightened state, it's just emotion talking to emotion. There's literally no logic involved at all. So when you have that line of my line is I know if I cross it because my kid has broken a rule, then I'm not going to be able to be effective. I can't correct. And I think you brought up an amazing point. There's actually it's from, dialectical behavioral therapy, and I use it a lot. It's called STOP, and literally it's an acronym, and the S stands for literally stop,
Mhm.
T stands for take a step back, and I tell people, "Take a physical step back." Like, just take a step back. O is for observe. Observe what's going on, what's happening with you, what's happening with them. Observe what's going on. The acronym start is for P is perceive mindfully. I like to change it a little bit and I say, do you need to pivot, proceed, or continue pausing? Like, decide what you need to do in that moment because, right, sometimes it's like, I just need a little redirect and, like, we're gonna be fine. Sometimes I need another minute, or it's like, "Okay, I've gotten to a point where I am okay and I can go in and I can manage what's happening with them or with myself." And I even say that too, like, when our spouses are, I always tell people, like, there's a fighter and a flighter in a relationship. So there's a person that's like, "We're staying until this is figured out," and there's one person that's like, "Get me out of here." Like, and so right, and that's where it is the communication piece of, like, for the fighter, like, how can I, as somebody who wants to avoid, let you know, "Hey, I just need a couple minutes. I'm coming back. I'm
Mhm.
coming back. I get that the anxious attachment of, like, you're nervous, I'm gonna go. If you let me just take a minute to myself, I can then come back and I can actually hear you because right now I can't hear you anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just protecting myself because I think you're a bear. I think, my life is in imminent danger. And so my brain is doing a great job of shutting everything down. And that's the part of the brain that's like, don't say those things. And that's gone. And it's like, I don't want to just say things to say things to hurt you. Like, I want to have a meaningful, and even with our kids, right? It's like, I want to say things with purpose and redirection but I don't wanna say things that are gonna hurt you because I was experiencing emotion, so my line and you actually brought up something that I kinda like to really focus on too of like, my kids, like, cross the boundary. It's so boundaries are for us, rules are for others. And so this is the best kind of way I explain it is like my boundary is, you know, everyone sleeps in their own bed. That's what works for my household. Like, and so everyone sleeps in their own bed. The rule is you have to stay in your bed. I can't force you to go to sleep. You want to stay up for 5 hours talking to your stuffed animals? That's on you. Like my boundaries, if you come into my room to try to crawl on my bed, I have to follow through and I have to put you back. You
Mhm.
broke a rule, but how am I going to respond?
Mm. Yes. Oh, that's so good. I wrote down, like, so much right now. Literally. And I laughed when you said, like, the whole one person is, like, the flight and the other or the fight or flight,
Yeah.
and they marry each other. And you said that, and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so me and my husband." I'm, like, the flight person, and he's, like, the fight. "I wanna resolve this now." Like, and I'm like, "No." Like, I grew up in a abusive home. So for me, my instinct is to flight, right? Yeah, and everything that you said, like if the tone is out of context, I'm like in that like bear down kind of like I just find myself in a place that I don't like to be because of the trauma that I grew up in, right? So I try to avoid any of that by all means. However, it's also it's not healthy for either of us, right? We have to like sit and calmly experience our or talk through our emotions. And I think that's one of the things that like I am learning right now because I grew up in a home where we didn't talk about emotions. We couldn't have emotions, basically. Like, it was the, "What are you crying for?" Like, there's no "Do you want me to give you a reason to cry?" It was that kind of thing, you know? And my father literally often said his infamous words were,
Yeah.
"I'd rather you fear me than love me." Literally. So, that is the type of home that I grew up in. So, fear was a huge emotion that I just was, like, always living in fear, always living, like, walking on eggshells, right? Because you don't know, how is he gonna come home? Is he gonna be in a good mood, a bad mood? What's gonna piss him off today? Like, am I gonna get hit today? Am I gonna, like, lose a bunch of hair today from him pulling my hair out? Am I gonna get a black eye today, a fat lip? What's gonna happen today? We did not know. And so we couldn't express our emotions. We had to, like, bottle everything up. So I am in a place where I am learning to express my emotions healthy, but I in this, I'm actually taking a course at, my church. It's called, like, Emotionally Healthy Relationships. It's, a course with Pete Scazzero, and it has been very eye-opening for me, but then also in looking at other women and how we all struggle with processing our emotions. And I think that's a huge thing of talking about the mental load that us women carry is that I don't think there are a lot of people or homes that grew up in a place where we emotionally were healthy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, so
Yes.
I mean, I know I did not grow up in a home environment. My family today, we are all emotional hot messes, right? And now that I am learning a lot about my emotions and trying to understand them, I am in a place where I reflect back because part of the like therapy or exercise that we go through with this course is you are looking at like your genealogy of what you came from, right? We're piecing together like all of this of what does this look like for you emotionally? Well, of course you don't know how to process your emotions because you were never given an example of what healthy emotions are, what healthy relationships are. So, how does one that is trying to unpack this mental load? How are our emotions come to play with that? How can we learn to process our emotions healthy?
Yeah, and I think you bring up, like, a really great point, and that kinda goes back to, like, okay, so, like, now I'm, like, trying to break generational cycles, and so, like, how do I do that, like, for myself? And then I see my kid, and they're having a tantrum, and, like, but now all my stuff's ki and right, and so then you're, like, late at night, you're just like, how am I gonna do this? Like, how how am I gonna break all these things? And so and that's, like, the really the unspoken pressure, like, for moms and for dad, and I think and this is where, like, I wanna totally validate moms. I think dads have a harder, like, pressure of, like, I do not want my kids to fear me. I want my kids to come to me, like and so they're trying to, like it's like and they have a big societal piece of do not show your emotions, and so they're trying to break that, and I think that's, and it's like the 2 of you, and like, this is so hard. Um, but I think kinda going back to, like, how to process your emotions. So this is actually a thing that I have a lot of parents are like, "Well, I shouldn't tell my kid, like, what's going on with me." And I was like, "Balance." When
Mm.
your kid knows I'm experiencing emotions, they then get insight to like, "Oh, okay, now I know what's going on." Now, am I gonna sit there and say, "I'm so overwhelmed because of softball practice and the bills and the" No, 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 no. I'm not putting that on anybody, right? But I'm letting them know this is mom is experiencing emotions right now. Maybe because of you, maybe because of other things, but like mom is hitting her limit, her capacity. M Mom is gonna do coping skills. This is like when I used to work with little kids, it was like, "Well, how do I get my kid to do it?" You don't get them to do it. You do it, and you invite them in if they want to. And the more they see you doing it and they're watching you de-escalate, they're watching you process your emotions, they will then automatically join in, or you'll, like, catch them doing it, like, without having to say to do it. Because that's a lot of times I had parents that like, I tell my kids to do their coping skills, and they just don't wanna do it, and it's like, it has to be modeled for them over and over and over again. And the other, kind of caveat to that is, it's almost like we practice coping skills when everything's wrong. And it's like your brain can't do them. Practice them when everything is fine. So your brain knows when I do this, I should feel better. So I need to start working towards feeling better.
That's so good. And, I think you and I were talking about this when we chatted the other week about the movie, Inside Out, right?
Yes.
We're talking about okay. So, but and I bring this up about emotions because it's so important. I love how you shared, like, it's important for us to express to our kids what we're feeling, right? We don't have to give a list like, "You're stressing me out because I have to pay for your practice, I have to pay for your travel ball," like, all this stuff, right? Maybe when they get older, I think I had that conversation with my son, like, 2 weeks ago. "I'm stressed out because I'm trying to send you to Europe this summer. Do you understand? Like, trying to pay this many thousands of dollars so you can go to Europe before your parents even go to Europe." Anyhow, but he's gonna be 17, he can handle it. But unpacking emotions, I love, and I think we've gotten into a place in society where now we look back, right? You learn from the past, you learn from history. A lot of people, like, a lot of us Generation Xers, we're a hot mess. That's why you have a job, Chelsea, because we need to go and unpack all of the trauma that, like, our parents, passed on to us and so forth, because going back to the cultural and the societal stigmas that were placed, like, we don't talk about that. No, we sweep it under the carpet, right? And in this class that I'm taking of emotionally healthy relationships, I mean, we have like 80 women. And this is like the norm that you're hearing of women, you know? It's not until like a little bit into like the 20 something year olds where you're starting to see some of these generations are breaking, where they are like when they did their little geneagram thing there of, like, the trauma and how it came, it's like, "Oh, mine is clean," where mine was, like, all these crazy zigzags and lines and X's and dashes, like, all this stuff, right? And we're starting to see so I love that we're seeing these generational cycles breaking,
Yeah.
that these younger generations, they're not gonna have a crazy genealogram that's gonna, like, go back to all of this emotional package that was carried on down to them.
Yeah.
But we see today that therapists on a rise, counselors, life coaches, like, life coaches weren't even a career back then because people are realizing that emotional stress, there's such a huge impact to emotional stress, overwhelm, all of that, but it has a physical impact on us also, right? It affects our body, it affects our it's a cause for disease, right? So there's so much research that ties a lot of physical ailments back to your emotions, back to your mental health. So, going back to Inside Out. Absolutely love the movie, both movies. The recent one, Inside Out 2, it depicted anxiety, which is something that I have struggled with. I took both the like, we took the whole family to go see it. We even took my older son's girlfriend, like, we all went as a family, "Let's go watch it." I sat there in complete awe of how well they actually demonstrated these emotions, right? Especially anxiety, something that I suffered with for a really long time. Still have it, but I've learned to manage it, right? So we leave the theater, and I remember telling my family, like, in the car, "You guys, the way they depicted anxiety, it was to a T." And it was to a T where I was sitting there in the chair that I felt an anxiety attack come on because I was feeling her emotions because I've been there. I've been there so many times where I had to go through that, and I was explaining it to my kids, like, "You guys, that's what anxiety feels like." Like, they nailed it so well, right? So well. And then looking back at all the other emotions that they depicted, like joy, sadness, fear, it was depicted in such a way like, we didn't have those movies growing up, Chelsea. We didn't have that to see, right? And I'm just like, I wish that it was like a rite of passage that every parent and every child will see this movie to be able to understand what their emotions go through. So that movie allowed my children who right now, neither of them suffer from anxiety, but they got it inside of what mom went through for many years, especially when they were younger. I didn't have my anxiety under control. So when I had those moments of mom needs a timeout right now, and I would go into the bathroom and lock myself, I was having an anxiety attack.
I literally my heart rate would escalate, and I'm like the room starts spinning, and I'm like, and I'm trying to calm down, I'm praying, I'm doing whatever I can, not realizing that there was so much more to managing my anxiety. So, I never wanted my kids to see that side of me on the other door because I think that they would get scared, but then there was this a sense, like, as I'm watching it on the big screen and I'm seeing how well they depicted it, where I'm like, "It's important for our kids to be exposed to what emotions really feel like." And we hide that from our kids. We wanna be strong, we wanna, like, keep our head up, keep our chin up, and, even things like grief. Recently, like, we had some significant loss in our family, like, we lost a very important person in our lives. It was the godfather to both of my sons. He was like my brother. He was a cousin, he was like my brother, though, and processing through that grief, like, it's gonna be 2 years later. This August will be 2 years since he passed. Like, we still grieve, like, we still talk about him, and I don't know that people know how to even grieve properly. All of these emotions, we wanna hide it like, "Oh, he's in a better place, and, I'm just being selfish because I want him here." It's like, no, we have to grieve what we've lost, and we wanna sweep things under the carpet because we think we're a better, bigger person for that, and that's what just adds to our emotional baggage and this mental load that we carry because we're not taught to expose our emotions or even how to deal with them. For the woman that's listening right now, I want you to give some advice, Chelsea. Like, she's feeling completely overwhelmed right now. She doesn't know how to express her emotions because maybe she grew up like me, where, it just wasn't a thing. What is the first thing that she can do today to start eliminating this like mental package that it just carries on her?
I'm like, we can go so many routes with this.
I know we can.
But here's honestly what I kinda tell people is, like, or when I'm, like when it is, like, because like, some things and I always wanna validate, like, there are some things that we really can't just, like, get rid of, right? Like, and that's why we talked about, like, boundaries, like, I can't just, like, tell my kid, like, "You're out of my life," you know? And so, especially my kids are 7 and 3, like, that's just
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
realistic.
Yeah.
But I honestly and I know it seems really simple, but it's actually really scary, is, like, have you checked in with yourself?
Mm.
I think a lot of times it's like, "I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." I'm like, "Have you really checked in? Where are you really at?" Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, "Nothing's going on," 10 being like, "I'm about to blow." Where are you? And a lot of times it's like I keep myself so busy, so moving that, like, I'm like, "Oh, like a quick guess, like, I'm probably at like a 4," but I was like, "Do you really sit and think about it?" And you're like, "I'm at like a 9." Okay, so how do we get down 1 point? That's the other thing. I think people are like, "Well, I wanna be at a 4, but I'm always at an 8." Okay, so how do we just get down to an 8? And I know it sounds crazy, but I'm like, low-hanging fruit, people. Sometimes it's like, "Have you eaten today? Probably not. Have you had any water today? Maybe." Like, I'm like, sometimes it's just like, "Have I done that? If that's still not working, okay, can I check in with myself? Can I pause for 5 minutes and just breathe?" Like, and that's the thing I think a lot of people forget is, like, deep breathing is phenomenal. I don't like to say it, like, when we're in fight or flight or having a panic attack because that takes a lot of brain power, but if you're just stopping and checking because here's the thing, people are like, "If I stop, the whole soda can's gonna explode." I was like, "If you stop and just crack the lid a little bit, it won't explode."
Mhm.
That's all I'm asking is that we are just cracking it little by little by little, and then we release some of that pressure so we don't feel this tight, uncomfortable, like, on edge, like, "Ooh, is it gonna be time?" And so
Mhm.
I think even in that of just checking in with yourself and, like, where am I really at, and is there any needs I can kinda meet for myself, like, of even, I tell people out, like, a prayer, the research backs it up. I'm like, if you're not religious, just talk out loud. Like, because when you can hear yourself saying it, the things up here, like our little headquarters, it's a lot bigger in here when we kind of can externalize it. And that's a big thing I work on with kids. But I can get it here. Okay. Now I can see the problem. Now I can see what's going on. And it's not as big and scary in my mind as I had envisioned it. Or even kinda, like, going through the tasks, it's kinda like when you brain dump and you're like, "Wow, it's a lot of things." But then you can kinda like, "Okay, let me pick a few things. I can't tackle the whole list, but I can tackle a few things," right? And so, even just in that, like, you're essentially, like, emotionally brain dumping when you talk it out loud, or even you had the time, journal. If you had the time, voice memo yourself. Like, you don't and that's where I tell people, like, I in a perfect world, like, we'd have our people that we can unload on, and maybe it's different seasons or things like that. Voice memoing yourself and listening back to it, you're like, "Wow." Like, "Okay, like, I can hear something's going on really quick," or, and that's where I think having your tribe of people, having your partner, like, and that's that healthy communication. And so, like, that's where, like, I tell people, parents, you don't wanna dump on your kids. It is not their job. That's not their job. What you are showing is how am I managing it so that way when your things are happening, okay, like, I don't know why I do it, but it's like Pledge of Allegiance. Like, I always just, like, do this. I'm like, I feel like I have to feel my heartbeat. Like, I know I'm here and I'm live, and I'll, like, say things. And so my daughter will literally be like, "I feel frustrated right now." And I'm like, "Okay." Right? Because she's seen me do it so many times, and it's like, "Okay, you're feeling frustrated. Great. Thank you for letting me know that being sassy to me is because 'cause you're feeling frustrated with me. You're feeling frustrated that I'm saying no, or I said you can't wear this or whatever, okay, I can validate your feeling,
Mhm.
and you're still not wearing that."
Mhm. Yeah, so good, Chelsea, so good. The whole check-in with yourself, I think that's huge because especially when you're at that point where you just feel like you have so much, right? And you're like, "I can't stop right now because the whole ship's gonna sink if I stop for literally 5 minutes right now." We all have been there, we've been there, especially when you're in the thick of it with little ones and you're just like, "I just can't breathe, I'm just, like, suffocating right now." To that mom that's juggling, like, the little ones and, school, practice, baseball, football, cheer, like, all of that stuff, you're in the thick of it, and you just think, "I work, I have to, do homework with my kids, take them to practice, do this," like, I don't have time for myself, let alone to stop and do a check-in. Going back to what Chelsea said before, like, you have to put yourself first or it like, as the best thing for your family. So, if you don't feel that you have the time, that's when you need to ask for help. And I think that's another thing that us women tend to, like, maybe be a little prideful and that we don't wanna ask for help because then it means that we don't have it all together. That means that we can't do it all. I'm gonna tell you right now, friend, you cannot do it all. You can't. You
Right.
just accept the fact that you cannot do it all because we physically, emotionally, mentally, we're not made to do it all. Like, even Chelsea, talked about the Bible, how Jesus went and retreated, and he's like, he had his own little boundary that he created. I need to go pray. He went often. He retreated. I mean, he went and prayed in the desert for like 40 days. He went MIA for 40 days and he spent it. And then he was like tempted by the devil in the desert, right? And you try to get temptation. Like I can go on and on about that. That's not the point. The point is, Jesus did not do it all by himself. He couldn't. He had to retreat and say, I need to go get my cup filled in order for me to come back and pour out to y'all because y'all are crazy. Y'all are sinners. Y'all need to get your life straight. And I can't do it all. So I got to retreat and pray and get filled up and, you know, be reminded by my own father of why I'm doing this, why he called me, how to do it, and go and you pour out. So you cannot do it all. But like society has told us that we can and that we should. Social media has told us you can and you should. And if you don't, you suck and you're not a good mom. Right. And it's so frustrating to see that. And I wish that I can go back to like my 27, 28-year-old self when I was in the thick of it with my little ones and stuff, my 30 something year old, because I wish I knew some of the things I knew now back then that I could like tell myself, like, ask for help. It is okay. Like, ask for help. Your kid does not need the bento box lunch with the cute cutouts. Okay. You do not have to move the elf tonight. Just let it be. Like there's so many things that I wish I could go back and like not stress myself out about. And I mean I joke about it, but there's so many there's so many truths to it. But
you just touched upon so much right now that going back to the self check-in, you have to be able to stop and pause and do a self check-in. With my coaching clients, that is the first thing that we do. The first exercise that we do, we're going to do a self inventory right now. It's a list of like 20 questions that I ask them. You're going to rate yourself right here on all of these things because you have to start from somewhere. You have to see where you're at. A brain dump. Let's brain dump because you know what? Some of the things that you are stressing about aren't even important. Like I have my clients categorize like, okay, A is it must get done, B this, like categorize what your brain dump is, and then you're gonna realize the stuff that you're stressing about aren't even important. Doesn't even have to happen until next week, or it's something that you can like delegate to somebody else to do. That's where you ask for help. But we're so prideful, like we don't want to ask for help, right? And how do you now I'm asking from a professional as you a professional therapist, okay. When you have a woman come in, Chelsea, and is like an emotional just wreck that is carrying the weight of the world on her hands, okay. You've done the self-checkout or self-reflection kind of, you checked in with yourself, right? We've done the self-inventory. Step 1, you're saying that this is like the first step, do this. What are some next steps that you would give your patient in whether it's creating powerful daily habits, whether it's, like you said, journaling, all of that stuff. Like you gave some great ones, but what are like the very, very practical things that you're going to say, this is what you're going to do for the next 30 days?
Yes. I'm sure nobody's gonna like this answer, but I actually am like, we need to what are your actual expectations of yourself, of your kids, of your spouse? Because sometimes so I did a big thing on, like, managing your mornings because 'cause I'm like, are you asking your kid to do the task or are you having an expectation that they will drop what they are doing, say, "Of course, mom," and then do the task? You've
Mm,
now set and that's the mental load of, like, my kid doesn't like me because they're complaining about this, as opposed to they got the task done. How they got it done doesn't matter. And I think that, and so that's where it's like self check. And then do I have realistic expectations for myself? Am I putting unrealistic expectations on other people in my life? And here's the other part about asking for help. And I always will forever acknowledge the cultural piece. I want to always make sure I'm calling that out because I am white. And and so there and I think my, like, cultures handle things differently. And so, right, like, there is expectations of, like, we come together as a village, and then there's also where it's like, no, like, you leave and cleave and, like, you're on your own, right? And so, I always wanna take that piece into consideration. And so, even the asking for help, but it's like, am I putting an unrealistic expectation on myself, but also on other people in my life? Do I think they really wouldn't come help me? Do I
mm,
really think that they're gonna think any less of me because I'm asking for help? I'm asking for them, "Hey, I need you to pick up my kid on Tuesdays." And so because we don't wanna feel like a burden.
mm.
We don't wanna feel like a burden. And so if I ask for help, I'm burdening you with my child. That's my responsibility I essentially chose to do. And so, but then I've also put all these unrealistic things on my plate that I can't. And a lot of times we don't realize that we have set the bar way too high for ourselves. And so when we just miss it, it's like boom.
That's so dang, Chelsea, that's so good. So good. I'm sitting here thinking like I do that. I set expectations of how people should act, respond, and then I get disappointed when the picture of how I wanted it done or said or whatever is not met. So it's on me because I'm setting an unrealistic expectation. Um, and I also know, like, communication is a big factor of that, especially, like, if I'm asking my kid, I've gotten now to where because my oldest son is away at college, he's not here at home, but my youngest kid, he's 16, he'll be 17 in July. He's at that phase where, he just likes to sit in his room and not like, socialize with people. He's at that teenage where, he does all his socializing at school and in his athletics and all that stuff, and then he comes home and he wants nothing to do with anybody. So, my communication is I'll send him a text sometimes. If we're out and about, "Hey, I need you to unload the dishwasher by 1 p.m. today." Like, so my expectation, I don't care how long it just has to be unloaded by 1 p.m. That's my expectation, right? Because before I would say, "Hey, I need you to unload the dishwasher." And then if I got home and it wasn't done, then I got angry and I'm like, "What do you do?" He's like, I'm not ready to do it yet." So now I had to verbalize it in my communication. What is my expectation that it's going to be done before I get home? What time am I going to be home by? 1 p.m. So now I'm communicating, make sure that the dishwasher is unloaded by the time I get home, 1 p.m. or whatever it is. So I'm being very specific in my communication. And now, if it is not done, then I come home and I'm like, "Hey, I was very clear. What did you not understand about this?" Because now it's like I'm being clear, but what is delaying you, you know? But I can say, I think since I started shifting in that way, where I'm like specific with the time, end of day, by the, like whatever, I'm giving like a hard deadline. I don't think there has been very much issues as far as, like, when the dishes need to be unloaded, when the trash needs to be taken out, when your room needs to be cleaned, because I'm verbalizing and communicating effectively so that there's no failed expectation in that part. And then if it is, I'm asking, "What did you not understand about this? Where was I not clear about it?" And I don't know, you tell me as a therapist now. Is that is that a good is that good or is that bad, Chelsea?
I'm gonna go back to my phrase of like, it wasn't, and this is where, and because people want like me to tell them clear cut answers, I'm like, I can't give you that because every family dynamic is gonna be different. Everything is gonna be right, and so even like we'll very quickly touch on this, like kids who are under the neurodivergent category who have ADHD and who have autism, like they do not, it like a demand will send them into fight or flight. Right, but that may not be your kid, so your kid might need be like, "I need a hard deadline," and if that's what works, I'm like, "Go for it." That's where I'm very much like, the right way isn't the only way, and if this is the right that you're like, "This is the way that, like, my son under like, he needs, like, a time," where, like, for, when I work with, like, ADHD kids or even parents, like, who have ADHD, it's like, instead of saying, like, "I need the dishes done by 1," it's, "I am so excited to use this cup in the cabinet because because you put the dishes away."
Ah, so different.
It same concept,
Yeah.
phrased differently, right? Because it's a non-demanding, it's, "I am excited to see what shoes you pick today. I am excited. Do you wanna wear the blue shirt or the red?" Right? So it's giving them a little bit more control. It's not being demanding, right? But then some kids, like, need that, like, "I need this done." Like, my daughter, she is somebody who, like, does really well with timers. Like, it's like if I set the timer, it's like 5 minutes and then it's bedtime, 5 minutes, and that's what works for our family. It doesn't work for every
Every
family.
family, yeah. Oh, I love that, I love that. No, but as I'm sitting here, because I don't wanna give and that exactly what you said, I don't want to give insight or information because everything is so different. Like, it works for us, I gotta give I and my kids were the ones where timers were, like, so good. I would set a
Mhm.
timer like, "Hey, okay, you have 15 minutes to get your shoes on, get your backpack packed, and we need to be out the door." Even still to this day, I am counting down to my kid, as he's in high school now, but I'm like, "Hey, you got 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes, you gotta be out the door, you have 10 more minutes. Hey, you have 20 minutes to get in the shower and get ready." Like, I'm constantly doing that whole countdown mode because that's what has always
Yeah.
worked for us. But in the dynamics are so, so different, and then I like, it's also a season, right? Your kids aren't gonna be little where they're gonna need those timers, like, all the time. Although, I mean, my kids are a little bit older and they still, like, it's structure. But I set a timer for
I
myself.
was like, "The timer's for me. It's actually not for you. It's for me because we will be late if I don't give myself a, like, okay, so I have 5 minutes. I have 5
Yes.
minutes to, like, get everything done.
Same he I literally set timers for, like, everything, and I'm constantly watching and but again, that's like a boundary I create for
Yes.
for me to allow me to be prompt, to respect people's time, to be timely and all of that. But, speaking of being timely, Chelsea, we can go on and on and on, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we have to start wrapping up here because I've you have just given so much great insight, and I know that there's somebody today that is I wrote down so much, Chelsea. Like, I literally have 2 pages, like, of my notes here back and forth, all of your little things here because there's so much that you spoke to me. So, thank you for pouring into me, and I know that you have poured into so many as well. But as we start to wrap up, I always like to, connect with my listeners, or connect with my guests and have my listeners connect with you. So I like to ask a couple of like fun questions. So the first is just tell us a little thing that brings Chelsea joy. What is that one thing that in the middle of the chaos and the overwhelm and all of that, that if you stop for a moment and you can do this one thing that's just going to put a big smile on your face?
Get a cup of coffee. I I love my coffee. Or like I'm like, all right, everyone in the car, we're gonna go grab some coffee really quick. Um, and I have a big chocolate tooth. I don't like candy, but you better believe there's always chocolate available at my house.
I love it. I love it. Now this is a big one. We want to give our listeners some resources that can help them just with this topic of, maybe overwhelm, setting boundaries, us women that carry the mental load. So, what is a book, one that you would recommend to the listeners on this topic? And then just a fun book that you would recommend as Chelsea, I know we kind of talked about this a little bit. You loved fantasy. So, I want you to give a couple of book recs to the listeners.
Yeah, so I'll start with this one. It's called Setting Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawwab. I'm hoping I'm saying the last part right. She's kind of like the launching point for me of like just even understanding boundaries that were like for myself. So I think like, she kind of does a really good deep dive for you as an individual. I think especially like setting boundaries with family members, setting boundaries like, with colleagues and coworkers. And that's where I kind of took it and was like, how do I do it for kids? And then anything, by Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. The biggest reason I recommend this is because it gives insight into what is happening for your kids and their brain development. Because a lot of time expectations. My child is having a tantrum. If they're having a tantrum now, they're gonna have a tantrum in 10 years and in 20 years. And then we operate like we think we're talking to a 23-year-old, not a 3-year-old. And so they give really good insight and explain things very well of like what is actually happening in your kid's brain. And then it gives us that understanding of like when they're throwing the tantrum, okay, this is what's going on. And how do I then come in and help manage it? So that way, I'm being more helpful. And then I love Brene Brown. Anything by Brene Brown, I'm like, give it to me. I, love all of her books. And so I think she's also, if we really struggle with guilt and shame, that's literally her area, like, and vulnerability. She is the queen of that. And so if that's like where you're like, I really think I struggle with that kind of aspect, she'd be a great resource.
Awesome. And then your,
Oh,
like, just love of books rep was?
Oh, right now, I mean, it's like the Hobbit is, I love Fourth Wing series, and the ACOTAR series. I think, they're always on like my rereads or I'll always like listen to them. Gotta love dragons and just like a nice break from like reality of like, okay, like I can go into like a totally different world and like see all the world building and stuff. So those are definitely my jams.
Oh, so fun. It's always nice to, like, escape through books, right? I love that. I personally am not a big fantasy, like, reader, but I've heard a lot of great things about the Fourth Wing, books, that they're fantastic. So, Chelsea, and then lastly, can you just, share with the audience where they can connect with you, some resources that are available, and all the good stuff that you have going on?
Yeah, so I'm really Instagram is like the biggest place you could find me. I kind of am a little bit on Facebook, a little bit on TikTok, but like Instagram is like it's just my home, it's my people. Like and so you find me at Mind and Heart Therapist. And then in like my link over there, I definitely have resources. I have a couple guides like how to manage your mornings, like, and how to have realistic expectations for your morning routine to like set yourself up for a really good day with your kids. How to hold your boundaries, right? Because it's well, you can set them all day long, but how do you hold them? I also have a quick guide of just like how to set boundaries and how to set external, like I'm going to tell you my boundaries versus maybe you are not a person that's going to even respect it. So how do I internally set my boundary? And just to kind of know like how to do it, how to go about it, how to kind of present it to family members who may not respect your boundaries at all. And then I just came out with it's a presentation and PDF of like 3 steps to repair with your kids because I tell parents like you're gonna mess up. Like let's accept that now. You're gonna mess up. So this is how we break those generational cycles of it's basically like an apology on steroids, but what it does is it really engages the healthy dynamic of me taking ownership, me asking them like, this is what I observed. I apologize. You help me. How can I do better? Because then it's modeling for them and getting their little brain working of, oh, mom got really angry. This is what I would have liked her to do. So now I know that, but also they're hearing themselves say it as well.
That's great. So many great resources. I can't now all of this stuff too, y'all will be in the show notes. So I'm gonna put her website and all of this information in the website so you guys can connect with Chelsea. And another thing that I want to add, I have a lot of local listeners. So Chelsea is a local in San Dimas, right, Chelsea?
Candy. Yep.
San Dimas, California. So if you are looking for a therapist in the San Dimas area, you can definitely connect with Chelsea. She would be a great local resource. So anyhow, if today's conversation, today's episode just really resonated with you, be sure to connect with Chelsea. If you're looking for a local therapist, again, you have a great one right here with Chelsea. And I want to again thank you so much, Chelsea. Like I think we're gonna have to bring you back again on the podcast because I can go on and on forever. And I feel like this was a therapy session for me, honestly. So thank you. Y'all got an insight of a therapy session with for me here. So but if this episode did resonate with you, go and share it with a friend, help a girlfriend out and pass this information on to her. Continue to support each other and really learn to find that balance so that you can have joy in your daily life. And just don't ever stop chasing joy. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.